Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. Before we do the disclaimers, and yes, I apologize for looking a little rough. In my defense, I'm 40. And it's getting to the point where I just don't care anymore to even try, and I can't even tell you the freedom of just not caring. Alright, to the disclaimers, folks. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, all pertinent links are right there in the description box. We do encourage you to take a look at the article in there written by Neuroclastic. In it, they did interview over 800 ABA professionals, literally from all over the globe, I might add, in regards to the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center's so-called behavior modification program. In particular, I always list it because the JRC, well, looks like Neuroclastic got so deep up underneath their skin by that particular article that they're using their never-ending stream of resources to try to intimidate them to get it removed from the website by threatening them with a defamation lawsuit. Neuroclastic literally has a yearly income on bad years around 10,000, on good years about around 12,000 in yearly revenue, all which is used to take care of internet bills if there's any case they need to travel, like in regards to the JRC, for example, things of that nature. They don't have unlimited income. They are small, but they are refusing to be intimidated. So please do read that article. We got their GoFundMe also listed in there because, like I said, they are small. They do not have access to unlimited funds, excuse me. Any small bit will always help just in case the JRC ever does see through of their threat. Now, for our trigger warnings, when we do discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys or any of the myriad of the troubled teen or disability developmentally disabled schools that pretty much line up and down from West Coast to East Coast, all lining right along the Bible Belt there. You are going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you do have young children present, at the very least, please utilize the headphones. Also, for obvious reasons, but I'm just going to detail it anyways, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity. We speak on dark subjects. If the child is watching this and they're 16 and younger, parental supervision is very much definitely advised, alright? Alright, now we're going back to EL where we do a video per sentence. The reason why is because the JRC always does this in regards to any kind of argument they try to put up in their favor. What they systematically do is barely skate around violating HIPAA law by using abbreviated initials instead of the names of the consumers that they're talking about. They're still walking a pretty tight rope there. Yeah. But what they like to do is they go for their version of shock and awe. So what they do is they are going to list to you all of the worst types of behaviors that these kids have manifested. What they don't tell you is any form of context. They don't tell you if that behavior is rare or frequent. They don't tell you what is going on in regards to the student's environment when these behaviors are coming out. They're not giving you any context into what's going on at the time when these behaviors are happening. They're just listing them so that they can shock you into thinking that obviously this person must be completely out of control, because when they get you into that emotional place, let's face it, neurotypicals, you become a hell of a lot easier to manipulate over to whatever it is they're suggesting, particularly since neurotypicals in particular are geared damn near from birth to always agree with quote unquote experts and submit to appeals to authority. Unfortunately for the JRC, I am not neurotypical. I am bullheaded, I am stubborn, and I cannot be bribed, intimidated, or negotiated with. I also work in the field, so I know how these types of reports are supposed to look. I will tell you about all the things and contexts that are missing. I point out every single elephant in the room with a bullhorn standing on a soapbox. So, let's get into it, shall we? Next sentence. Alright, so we went over how they once again listed the behaviors, listed the so called interventions, while skating around and not mentioning whether there was any kind of full functional behavioral assessment. Yes, even the one, though not as detailed, that was available at the time EL was admitted at the JRC, which was actually the BRI during that time period. So not only has he been subjected to the shots through their device, he was also subjected to, you know, the smelt palettes, the pinches, the quote unquote spankings with hard spatulas that were in use during the time before the 1990s, when they began to design and replace that with the GED device. So just kind of keep that in mind here. We're dealing with a punishment model. Punishment models always fail because they never actually deal with the root of the problem. They only punish the outward symptoms, which is the behavior. Ask any of us in Gen X, one of the last generations to be spanked regularly, whether being spanked actually stopped our more reckless and potentially life-threatening behaviors, or whether it did, in fact, anger us, and therefore those actions became worse. Because in my case and that of my brothers, it got worse. Just saying. Anyways, before I go off into left field again, additionally, EL was prescribed a variety of medications, including Ritalin, Haldol, Thorazine, chloral hydrate, Dilantin, valproic acid, Malari, Elavil, and flurazepam. These medications did not effectively treat EL's SIB and AB, and they resulted in unpleasant side effects that included increased agitation, intense aggression, sleep disorders, loss of appetite, hypertension, sedation, constipation, and other gastrointestinal distress. Here's the thing. When they start listing out the medications and screaming that they didn't work, they also very irresponsibly do not tell you the purpose of those medications. What is it exactly that each of these medications are actually prescribed to help treat? The first one I'm going to tell you because it's one of the ones that I am the most familiar with, as I was put on Ritalin starting the age in second grade, and I stayed on Ritalin with an ever increasing dosage every single year until I was about 16 years old and got switched over to Adderall. So let's talk about Ritalin. Ritalin is generally prescribed. We're going to talk specifically about this time period here. What it was prescribed the most for was attention deficit disorder. Now, in the early 90s, they did not call it ADHD as it is better known as now. Okay? It was simply ADD. And I hate to say it, and some of my fellow advocates might get angry with me at saying it, but I'm going to tell you anyways because the fact of the matter is I lived it. During that time period, especially circa early to mid 90s, I do think ADD was very much part of what I call a trend diagnosis. Now, what I call a trend diagnosis is when you notice a child in your class is a little bit off. They seem intelligent, they get good grades, but there's a few things that you are just noticing some issues in and a lack of skills, and particularly social, or in particular, if it seems like they're not paying attention. During that time period, the autism spectrum disorder, as we know it now, as an actual spectrum, although really it's kind of more of a fluctuating line, wasn't really that well known yet. That was a concept that didn't really start grabbing, didn't become as well known till about around 94, 95. So a lot of us who were actually simply on a different part of the quote unquote, I'm just going to call it a spectrum line that fluctuates, because that to me is what makes the most sense. It's not technical, it's probably not what the medical model is going to tell you, but as you all know, I already have multitudes of disagreements in regards to the medical model. So I was one of those who during that time period was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. What Ritalin is supposed to do, at least in regards to my treatment program, what I remember, was to help me be able to better focus at the task at hand, to help me pay better attention in class. Because my grades were good, but they were slipping. Not gonna lie and tell you that they weren't. They definitely, in some areas, were in free fall. As well as the teacher really had some very deep concerns about me making friends, and they thought a part of it might be because what they thought was lack of attention span. So I was put on Ritalin. It was meant to help me in regards to concentration, being able to stay on task. It was followed up in regards to IEP with daily planners that were remarkably detailed. Like with details, I'm going to do this at this time of the day. It was actually very structured, and that's something that I have kept to even now, even though now I'm properly diagnosed, because wouldn't you know, us autistic folks crave structure, and we do not at all do well without it. You have no idea. One thing, one tiny little thing is different in my routine. The best thing for me to do would to be get me a sleeping aid and go back to sleep for the next 24 hours, because I'm going to be useless for the rest of the day and should not be allowed to operate any type of machinery, not even a coffee maker. Not kidding. Not kidding. It's that bad. That was what Ritalin was supposed to do. Now, what's the side effects that I experienced when I was taking Ritalin, especially for that long time period, and especially when I started to develop more social issues? The doctor's solution for the longest time was to continue to up the Ritalin dosage. Well, my hypersensory went even more haywire than what it already naturally is. Any type of the smallest sounds, and you might as well be dragging your nails down a classic chalkboard on repeat for an hour solid with no rest, no break in the sounds, just you get my point. Okay. Also, because of the extra sensory, everything made me itchy. A slight gust of wind, itchy. Open the door, itchy. Use my pencil, those fingers are now itchy. Everything was itchy all the time. And I also had constant issues with my stomach. My stomach was in pain 24/7. When I got stressed, it was always worse. And I also think it contributed to me actually getting acid reflux at a way younger age than I ever should have. So, major stomach issues. I also had extreme difficulty with maintaining a healthy body weight. I was remarkably underweight all the time, to the point that I had at least 3 different teachers actually get a hold of and ask my folks if I was anorexic or if I was bulimic, because I was skin and bones. Now, this is in spite of the fact that I was eating like over half my body weight in food every day. And I'm not talking good food, folks. We're talking Cheetos and Doritos, Hamburger Helper, McDonald's, all the not so good stuff in mass quantities. But I could not maintain a healthy weight. I could not, no matter how active I tried to be able to build muscle when I was on that medicine. Okay? I was also always hyper aware all the time. Being hyper aware is exhausting. So that's Ritalin. Now, let's take a look at these, because if you look at them, not all of these medications they're listing are being prescribed to deal specifically with the behaviors. This is one of the areas where they are the most dishonest. In particular, Ritalin was not prescribed to me in any way, shape, or form to curb my behaviors. During that time period, I've told you all, I got very, very good at masking, hiding, and cloaking my behaviors. So nobody even really knew, unless it became extreme, that I was even having them in the first place. I hid it that well for a good number of years, and it didn't really come until middle school to where I wasn't able to camouflage those behavior issues anymore. Ritalin is not going to treat behavioral issues. Therefore, them listing that medication In regards to the things tried that didn't fix SIB or AB, no shit, Sherlock, you think? That is not what Ritalin is designed for, nor is it what Ritalin is prescribed for. Okay? It does not deal specifically with behavior. Now, if you do have ADHD and you do take Ritalin, it helps behaviors in as much as it allows you to focus and spend a longer time on one thing instead of constantly moving around and forgetting what you're doing. By doing so, it helps with burnout. We all know how burnout affects overall behavior, but directly, it's not going to have any real effect on SIB or AB. So it is absolutely pointless for them to list Ritalin in this sentence and say that it didn't help with the SIB or AB, because that's not what Ritalin is for. Now, this is going to turn out to be a little bit longer of a video than I anticipated, because we're going to take a look at each of the ones that they are listing here. We're going to take a look at what they are actually usually prescribed for, and dig into this argument, because I'm sorry, I'm a little motivated today. So we're going to take a look next at, let me highlight it, we're going to look at Haldol. We're going to go over here. All right, we're going to take a look at Haldol. This is coming from WebMD. So, what is this supposed to assist with? Okay, it says it is a first generation typical antipsychotic. So it is used to treat schizophrenia and other psychotic disorders, tics caused by Tourette syndrome, and certain severe behavioral problems in children. It belongs to a group of medicines called first generation typical antipsychotics. Common side effects include constipation, dizziness, drowsiness, and dry mouth. Okay, and then you see uncontrolled movements, blood disorders, and heart rhythm changes. I actually get the last part there due to hereditary fun. Anyways, so that one we can put under as something that has been prescribed to assist in regards to behaviors. Here's the thing about medicine, just like in regards to any other part of the treatment program plan. If you don't know what the triggers are, you can't be sure that the medicine that is being prescribed to help handle those behaviors is actually going to be effective. When I talk about the full functional behavioral assessment being an absolutely necessary document, that's part of the reason why. It doesn't just cover behaviors, it also covers any medication that might be prescribed in order to help you deal with those behaviors. If you don't know what's really going on and what's triggering those behaviors, you can't know that what's being prescribed to your kid is going to have any effect on those behaviors either. So sitting there and blaming and saying, obviously the medicine doesn't work, the only answer is torture and abuse, is still batshit insane, JRC. Okay? You're making yourself look worse, not better. Alright, let's take a look at some of these other medications they listed, shall we? Alright, Thorazine. I recognized this one. We're going to go ahead and pull it up and see what it's all about. Now, I do want to mention also, when you mix sometimes some of these drugs together, you can actually make behavioral issues worse instead of better. Again, this is why the full functional behavioral assessment is so goddamn important. You can't know that what you're doing is going to work, is going to be healthy, or make the kid worse if you don't know what the triggers are. It is what it is. So, let's go ahead. We're going to look this one up. Thorazine. We're going to have an education today. Here we are. We want to go here. Okay, so you have the injection or the pill. Yes, that's fine. Okay, here we go. It's going to make me, hit the button, obviously. We're going to do that in a moment. We're just looking at information computer. Goodness. All that. All right, we're going to try finding this a different way because computer is just like not happy. Okay. So what this is supposed to cover is schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Okay. So we're going to go up a little bit, shall we? Here's something I would ask the JRC right here. I notice when they talk about his disorders here, you see where it's telling us severe behavior disorder, but they're not telling us what that behavior disorder is. So riddle me this, Batman. If we are looking at a medication that is in general prescribed to treat schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, but in spite of listing everything else, they do not elaborate in what they mean when they say severe behavior disorder. How are we to know whether the medicine there, Thorazine, has been properly prescribed to EL or not? You can have behavioral issues without being schizophrenic or bipolar. Hi, how you doing? That would be me, right? That medication would not be prescribed to me because it gives me no benefit. It's not going to help me with my behavioral issues during the rare occurrences where they get out of control. That's what the Paxil is there for. To help me keep that anxiety in check. And when the anxiety is able to keep in check, it doesn't build up until I'm pushed into meltdown where my behavioral issues come out. Nobody wants to see that. Not even me. Just saying. Right? When you prescribe medications that are specifically for those types of disorders and say what you're having is behavioral issues, but you're not schizophrenic or bipolar, especially when you are taking other medications, more than likely, you're going to make things worse behavioral wise, not better. Trust me on that. I have folks who are both bipolar and autistic that I used to serve in my capacity working for MDDS. Sorry, we have so many acronyms, it's hard to get which one I'm talking about straight sometimes. We've got some that are autistic and schizophrenic, okay? But those consumers, when reports come up to them, when they come to my desk, when it would be something where I would need to go out there with a team, so to speak, if I'm receiving a list of the medications that they're on, something right here where it just says a very vague severe behavior disorder without telling you what that disorder is, that's a ginormous red flag. You do not fuck around with antipsychotics. You want to talk about something that can scramble your brain for life if you don't take it the way it needs to be taken, and taking it for what it's prescribed for, that really can either put you down or scramble your brain. Okay? That is a major concern and red flag that I would bring up in one of our group meetings while reviewing things before we went out as a group to one of those meetings that you've all heard me call when things go wrong. That would pop out to me immediately. They list all the other disabilities. They did not name the behavior disorder. So when you list something like Thorazine prescribed for those very specific two different disorders, but you do not know what that severe behavior disorder they list is referring to, doesn't pass the sniff test. I don't know what to tell you on that one. Yeah. All right. Now let's look at a few more of these. All right. Chloral hydrate. This is our next candidate here. Okay. Now, chloral hydrate is, in actuality, a sedative. So JRC is the head of the redundancy department, apparently. They always have been. It's always annoying. And for people who are trying to do the appeal to authority for us to accept their word, perhaps they should really cut down on the redundancy that they have in every single so-called debunking of any challenge we've brought up. Because, hear me out here. I know this is crazy talk. If you take a sedative, it's going to sedate you. That's its job. So would somebody like to explain to me, like I'm 5 years old, well, they list as one of the side effects sedation, when one of the medicines that they are taking is a sedative? I'm just asking. Nor are we told or given any context in regards to why that particular medication was prescribed to EL. We are not told at what time of day EL takes this drug. We are not told if this is a drug that he has to take frequently, or if it is a drug that is used when the situation goes really, really, really wrong. Because, again, having many friends who are both autistic and bipolar or schizophrenic or any of those issues, they do have that one pill for days when things have gone sideways. We're given no context here in regards to the sedative, and we're told the side effect is that it's a sedative. No, Karen, the fact that a sedative is sedating the kid is not a side effect. That's that medication's job. And if you're supposed to be the expert, may someone please shoot me in the head before I ever become your patient. Holy shit, a sedative sedates a person. That's not a side effect. That's what a sedative does. That's literally why they're prescribed. I can't deal with these people. These are supposed to be doctors, by the way. They're supposed to be higher up in knowledge than me here. I may need to send this to my mom. This is ridiculous. Alright, the next one's Dilantin. I'm a little bit more familiar with this one. But just for giggles, we're going to go ahead and pull that up too. Alright. Dilantin is an anti-epileptic drug and also an anticonvulsant. In other words, much like the Ritalin, why is Dilantin being listed in here as something that doesn't stop SIB or AB? Of course it doesn't, Karen. That's not Dilantin's job. It is an anti-epileptic medication. It's supposed to help a person with epilepsy not have seizures. Okay? It's not its job to deal with behaviors. It's its job to help the person who has epilepsy not have seizures. Why is this being listed in here as one of the medications that is not helping to stop SIB or AB? You see what I mean? Shady folk we're dealing with. Shady, shady folk. We're listing at least 2 medications here that have nothing to do with treating any form of behaviors whatsoever. Outside of they may help by helping one issue, which might help you not as likely to have the behavior. But it's more of it helps as a byproduct. It's not its purpose. Okay? That drug is not prescribed to deal with self-injurious behavior or aggressive behavior. It is prescribed to help treat epilepsy. It is ridiculous that they included it in this list. Now, we're going to go ahead and continue. Shall we? Moving on to valproic acid. How the hell this place has not been shut down by the federal government decades ago is far beyond me, because this is insane. Oh, would you look at that? Valproic acid is an anticonvulsant or anti-epileptic medicine. So now we are listing 2 anti-epileptic medicines in a row and including them in a sentence that says it does not stop EL from having aggressive behavior or self-injurious behavior. You fucking think? Again, this medicine is not prescribed to help treat people with self-injurious behavior or aggressive behavior. It is prescribed to people with epilepsy to treat epilepsy. We are now up to 3 medications that have no business being on that list whatsoever. Let's continue, shall we? This is getting ridiculous. All right. Next is Malaro. Starting to think people need to stop smoking crack. For real. What is Mellaril? Now this treats mental health conditions like schizophrenia. Now for the only other drug that is specific to behaviors, all we were told, remember, is a severe behavioral disorder. They do not flesh out what that disorder is. So again, within one of those groups that I've always called when things go wrong, where we would get sent out, but we would have to review ahead of time what the documentation was. If I'm seeing 2 things that are supposed to deal with bipolar or schizophrenia, but in regards to behavioral disorders, it just says severe behavioral disorder without detailing which one it's talking about. Huge red flag. That is something, especially when you're listing out medication like this, that you can't just give vague terminology to, and I don't know, sweep it under the rug like it doesn't matter. You're the ones who are bringing up the medication, right? They're bringing up the medication. They're telling us it doesn't help, right? Right? They're not telling us what that behavioral disorder is. So we have no idea whether these drugs are being prescribed correctly or not. Talk about fast and loose with the truth, right? All right. We got 2 medications left, folks. 2 medications left. All right, the next one is Elavil. We're going to take a look at this one next. Okay. Elavil is a prescription medicine used to treat symptoms of depression. Okay, so this is a medication for those of us who do suffer from clinical depression. I'm one of those folks. It makes an unholy marriage with my PTSD and my autism spectrum disorder to make a particular circular hell on planet Earth when things go wrong. Here's the thing though. In regards to behavior, can depression affect behavior? Yes, it can, and it can contribute. But in and of itself, it doesn't cause anything. it can affect comorbid conditions to create a bad situation. Okay? All right, we're going to go ahead. It also seems to help with nerve pain medication, which I can really use. Especially after over 20 years, I finally figured out what the hell is wrong with my legs. We'll go over that another time, hopefully at some point when I decide I have enough time to do a live. The last one is Lorazepam. Now this is one I'm a little bit more familiar with, but it's been a while since I've heard the name of it, so we're going to look it up just so I don't mislead anything. Okay, so Lorazepam treats insomnia. Okay, so let's close this out here, all right? Out of all those lists of medications, only 2 medications prescribed that they are listing here have anything to do with treating aggressive behavior or self-injurious behavior. All the other medications that they're listing here either has to do with clinical depression, the sedative, and by the way, I'm going to say it again, if they're sedated, that's not a side effect. You take a sedative to be sedated. That's literally their point. We have 2 medications that are listed that are supposed to help with behaviors. Those 2 drugs are prescribed specifically to those who either have a form of bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. The JRC gives us the vague terminology after fleshing out everything else of severe behavior disorder. We don't know which behavior disorder that they're talking about. So we don't even know if those 2 drugs would actually be effective in treating those behaviors or not. Again, this is why the full functional behavioral assessment is vital, not just in choosing a plan, but yes, in choosing medication as well. They have been majorly dishonest, listing medicines that are anti-seizure medications, attention span medications, one sedative, and one thing to help with sleep. Almost all the medicines listed are not being prescribed for, nor are they intended to treat aggressive behavior or self-injurious behavior. So there you go, folks. A long video that gave you quite a bit of context and also shows you exactly the games these folks play, the appeals authority that they make, and how easily they crumble into nothing with the slightest bit of scrutiny. I'm not a medical doctor, folks. I had a pill name and Google. We're going to close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. Please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please don't forget to hit the comments. I appreciate your time. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone.